Hello, and welcome back to episode 3 of the Rejects of Capitalism podcast. My name is James Rooney.
And I am Shane Turner, and this is a monumental episode. This is the first episode where we are recording with visual.
Yep,
we're using our webcams, basically.
Yeah, you could actually see our faces. Shane finally pushed me to do it after...
You guys have no idea how hard I've been pushing James just to get a live, because we started this podcast on Zoom after planning this podcast for 2 years. And James didn't want to do it because he didn't trust Zoom. Finally, after 2 years, he relented. And we decided to start with Zoom, but he didn't want to do it with the webcams. He wanted me to keep shutting off my webcam every time we recorded an episode.
And then I got beard trim and my self-confidence was boosted. Anyway.
Trust me, James, nobody gives a fuck what you look like. We're a podcast. We're not a catwalk.
True.
We're not an ASMR video. We're not an OnlyFans video, okay?
Hey, maybe in the future. Anyway.
Heyo.
Heyo.
You.
All right, enough. So on to the... That is my dogs in the background. On to the subject of today's episode. We are going to be talking about...
Down boy.
Girl, actually. We are going to be talking about mutual aid versus charity. Well, that's going to be the first topic of conversation because mutual aid is a really important topic when it comes to leftist organizing. So, according to the gods of the internet, mutual aid is a method of organization that basically it involves organizing in your community in a reciprocal way for everyone's mutual benefit. What I started doing when it comes to mutual aid is what's called food shares.
Is that the same thing as food drives?
Tiny bit, but what happens is a bunch of people show up at a location and donate food. That's it. The difference between that and a food drive is that a food drive is more organized and most of the time connected to some sort of charitable organization. Moving on to charity. A charity is similar, but it's different in organization. A charity is an organization devoted to helping those in need. And most charities kind of have a specific focus, like Feeding America does hunger, St. Jude's does, St. Jude's Children's Hospital focuses on childhood cancer, et cetera, et cetera.
Salvation Army focuses on helping poor people unless they happen to be gay.
Right.
Which is the first problem with charity.
Yeah.
Not every charity is going to help everybody.
Exactly.
Especially if they're religious, if they're religious charities, they're more likely to be discriminatory.
Right. And also, my main problem with charities is the tiered organization. It relies on capital and donations, and it's really structured like a business. Not to say that charity is bad, but it is structured like a capitalistic business. It needs capital to keep going. And there's CEOs and workers. It's a company. Whether they take in profit or not, it's still a company. So this is why...
But they're classified as non-profit, though. That's the thing.
Right. But they do need capital for operations costs.
Yeah.
And they do need to pay people. So this is why most leftists, and I'm not going to say all, most leftists have a particular focus on mutual aid rather than charity. Mutual aid involves, like I said, food shares. It involves food shares. It involves, for example, what the Black Panther Party did back in the 70s, like community defense, school lunch programs,
Breakfast
set up
pro
by
the school breakfast program, food drives,
right.
Healthcare clinics,
Yeah,
sickle cell anemia clinics.
Yes, mutual aid focuses on everybody in a community getting involved and helping each other, while a charity is more of an outside force, whether good or bad, coming in.
So basically, mutual aid can be something even if you don't actually call it mutual aid. Like mutual aid could be your neighborhood blood drive, basically,
Absolutely.
or a community
Absolutely.
fair where everyone like brings their own food or something.
Or a farmer's market, or a
Farmers market,
community
that's a good one.
garden. Like you don't need to you don't need to slap the label of mutual aid on something and call it a day. Mutual aid is just you or someone else getting a bunch of people in a neighborhood together and helping each other out.
I have a very stupid question.
Go
I have a
ahead.
very stupid question.
There's no stupid questions.
Well, this is a question that's ultimately going to come from a capitalist, basically.
Oh,
Are
okay.
markets themselves forms of mutual aid?
Absolutely not. Mutual
Because we
aid,
mentioned farmers markets.
yes, but most of the time, this focuses on the concept of the mom and pop shop, which has become a term of its own. When you support, like you see commercials that say support small business, and they're right when it comes to the lens of mutual aid. The idea behind supporting small businesses is that these are people in your community. They don't have the collateral of a larger company supporting them. Like, let's say a Taco Bell is not doing well when it comes to profit. They're not going to shut it down if they had a bad quarter. They're going to stay open because they have the support of a larger system. Mom and pop shops don't.
So if we're talking about like things like farmers markets,
right,
in order for it to be mutual aid,
circling back to that,
like I'm thinking of the farmer strikes in the Great Depression, where basically the farmers came together they organized together to protest the banks and financial sectors trying to like drive down food prices. And the farmers basically said, we'll drink our milk and eat our crops. Let them eat their money.
Right.
And they basically they came together, they traded their food, their crops and stuff, and they didn't like sell it or anything.
So circling back to the question of are markets mutual aid, I would answer no, because the motive is different.
The motive for a market is profit, but
profit, right?
In order for something to be mutual aid,
it's more taking advantage of a need rather than meeting it. When you meet a need, there's not necessarily an expectation of payment. You could, like, if you need money to keep that thing going, sure. But when it comes to a market, let's say a supermarket that's supported by a large organization, let's say Walmart, they're not meeting the need because they want to meet the need. They're meeting the need because it makes them profit. When you remove the profit incentive and you get just, let's say let's say that supermarket is separated off from the bigger Walmart company. You replace the employees with community members and you don't charge anything, that's when it becomes mutual aid. It may look the same when you walk into the quote unquote store,
But the
but
structure matters.
the structure is what's going to change, and the motive is what's going to change.
I see.
So, no, absolutely not. Markets are not mutual aid because most of the time they're not community members. I used to work at Walmart for 2 years. Most of the workers came in from the city.
This is on Long Island, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, you're saying that Walmart workers in Long Island, they came in from the city?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, number one, there's no Walmart in the city.
Yeah, but there are a lot of better jobs in the city than there are on Long Island.
I don't know.
That's
This
weird.
was when the minimum wage was raised to $12.50, then to 15. And
No, but even so, like New York City has always had a higher like minimum wage than the rest of New York.
I can't say. I don't know why. They were just there. And there were absolutely community members in the local Walmart because it makes sense. But there were a sizable portion of people that came from the city. They took the bus.
I remember in the 2000s, I was big on Harry Potter, and the fifth Harry Potter movie had just come out. And I remember this parody had come out, this parody of the fifth Harry Potter movie, the trailer for the fifth Harry Potter movie. And basically, instead of having like Voldemort as the bad guy, they had Lord Voldemort as the bad guy. And they created like this thing where Voldemort basically took over all the shops in Hogsmeade by putting a Walmart in Diagon Alley, basically.
And
then
hey,
like
that's a pretty bad thing to do.
no, it's like this whole parody was just like an effort to get people to stop supporting Walmart because Walmart at the time was the biggest company. This is before Amazon, and they were paying people shit wages, and they were basically like abusing their profits, basically.
Yep.
So, like this thing was brilliant, but it was hysterical. Just like,
and actually, Walmart is still the largest employer in the country. It still employs 2 million people, and
how much?
And
does
a
Amazon
majority
employ?
of states have Walmart as their top employer. The only thing that rivals it in other states is universities. Like New York, it's still NYU. No, not NYU. Yeah, don't quote me on that. I have no idea. But I believe
well, I mean, I live in like what exactly are you talking about? The fact that there are no Walmarts.
Who's the top employer in the state? In New York, it's not Walmart. I know that much. And I remember
I don't know.
I remember California that one of their state universities is the top employer.
Well, in New York City itself, it's like there are different things, but like in New York City, we don't have Walmart. I don't remember why. I think it's because New York, like they said that they didn't want it, basically.
Yeah, they didn't want it because it would destroy all of the bodegas in the city.
And not only that, but also like New York has the ability, which is really great. They have the ability to keep out corporations that they think will harm the community. Like this was famous with AOC in 2018 when Jeff Bezos wanted to put a warehouse or a headquarters in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And AOC fought hard, said like, no, you're not bringing this monster into New York.
And she succeeded. And I really applaud her for that.
Now, this
So,
was amazing.
oh yeah, yeah.
Like all the like capitalists are gonna say, like, oh, but like they're job creators. No, they're not job creators. They're fucking parasites. The only job
Yep.
creators are the ones who pay for your products.
Absolutely. So moving on to uh, more about the mutual aid versus charity discussion is their purpose and their pros and cons. So the reason I like mutual aid, it's kind of a catch-22. I like it, and it's also a con that it's decentralized. What do I mean by that? I like that it's decentralized because with the organization that I volunteer for, Community Solidarity, shout out to them, with their food shares, they have them set up all across the Long Island area, including the city. You show up and you work. That's it. You stand out there for an hour handing out food. There's there's no bureaucracy you have to go through.
Well,
However,
here's one thing that I'll mention. Sorry, you go ahead. I'll say that
okay,
after you're done.
okay. However, the problem comes with decentralization is reach. A bunch of people standing outside with, let's say, $1,000 worth of groceries isn't going to feed a community. However, when you get a charity like Feeding America with millions of dollars at their disposal, that's when you get some reach behind it. That's when that charity can call itself Feeding America and mean it. Even
Well, I
though
mean,
it's set up like a company, and it is because it is a company, there's reach and there's organization, and that can be powerful.
here's the thing. Mutual aid can have like different forms, different shapes and sizes, basically. The
Right.
one that I was thinking about, I probably mentioned this in the last episode, but like as a busker, I run into quite often these like guys in like gray t-shirts who they carry on like they pull around this little wagon filled with food, and they say if anyone needs food, if anyone needs water, we're handing out food. We also take donations. And like
that is the simplest form of mutual aid you can get.
yeah, and like I've given them donations at times. I've taken food from them. Those guys. Keep forgetting the name, but they're like in gray t-shirts. They like pull like this like wagon filled with like sandwiches, like boxes of meals, like water bottles, and they just like they give it out basically.
If
And it's
anyone
like,
in our hypothetical audience knows who they are, let us know.
I can Google it now. Like I can see.
While you're Googling that, so organization can be powerful, but the problem with organization is that is the requirement for capital. And when you have a requirement for capital, that's when things get shaky. Although the profit motive is removed officially because it's labeled as a nonprofit, you still have overhead. You need to pay for facilities. You need to pay for workers, drivers. You need to pay farmers for their food. Like you're not just gonna take their food. You need to pay for these things, and most of the time, that's where donations come in.
So I just found the organization I was talking about. They are called Food for the Homeless. And there is an article about
Short,
them
sweet,
on
to the point.
Pavement Pieces. I'm sorry?
Short, sweet, to the point.
Yeah, and the founder of it is this guy named Rolando Divine Farrow, who says you don't have to be homeless to be hungry, and that his mission is to feed as many hungry New Yorkers as he can.
That's
And
something I can get behind.
yeah, and it's like we have people who depend they, according to this article, they feed about 200 people every day, and they've been
That's
doing this for a few
awesome.
years. Yeah, and like they said, we have people who depend on us. They look for us to come by. Like they do it early in the morning, 6 days a week. They prepare sandwiches, fill the cooler carts. They got like $100 worth of supplies, and then they literally go onto the subway car, subway car, subway. They go to each car and they just say like if you're hungry, we have food. These guys are fucking amazing. Like you can usually tell by their gray t-shirts, basically. So a huge shout out to the
You shout out to feeding the
organization,
homeless.
to Food for the Homeless, for
Oh,
their work on
food
the
for
New
the
York
homeless,
subway.
right? So,
So you said that's like the most basic form of mutual aid, right?
oh yeah, absolutely. That is the most basic form of mutual aid. 1 second. I think my light is screwing up.
Well, so is mine. Mine's dimming out. But let me ask you something. What about services that are paid with donations, basically, like a free service, like that is paid for by donations?
Honestly, I don't think that really fits into either category because
Because a couple of weeks ago, I found this like credit analyst from an organization called GreenPath, and they said like, oh, we are a free service, like we are paid for by private. We're paid. Oh, my light just died. First episode on audio, and we don't have adequate lighting. Anyways,
first
so
video on video, actually.
yeah. Anyways, so this organization, GreenPath, they offered credit, help, and advice, and you don't have to pay them anything because they get paid through donations.
Right.
So it's like a service.
I don't think it really fits into either category because, yes, it's funded by private donations, which takes away the community aspect, but there's not really a profit motive, so it's not really a charity. Well, the motive isn't really, like helping the poor, helping the needy, so I wouldn't classify it as a charity either. It's like when you say a paid service, a free service that is paid for by donations, I think of Patreon. So does that really?
I'm thinking that it's like you call it like, I think you just call it a non-profit service or something like that.
Yeah, it's a non-profit service, so it doesn't really fit into either category.
I see.
Right. So the differences and the pros and cons of mutual aid, they're similar, yet their organization is so different that it, what do you call it? They're really meant for different purposes. With charities, you can reach a large area very quickly because there are real dollars behind it. But with mutual aid, you can help your neighbor. You can help your local homeless. Like, if you want to feel like, well, actually you will, if you want to have a real impact, no matter how small, look up a mutual aid organization near you and show up. That's it. That's how I got involved with mutual aid. I've been doing it for the past 3 weeks. Well, 2 weeks.
Nice.
And I met some.
Wait, is it 2 weeks or 3 weeks? That matters a lot.
It's 2. I showed up
really
to 2.
Matter. I
showed up to 2 food shifts. I'm going to go to my 3rd this Saturday. So, and I met so many amazing people on the volunteer and the recipient side. And yeah, if you want to just make an impact, mutual aid is the way to go. If you just want to have a place to put some extra dollars that you're not using, donate to a charity. But don't donate to a charity through a store. Like in
when Stop and Shop or CVS says, "Oh,
right.
would you like to donate? Would you like to round ups to donate to hungry kids?" And
Always say no, because you're not donating to the charity. It is you paying the company to donate to the charity so they can write it off on their taxes.
yeah, if you're gonna give to charity, do it yourself. Don't do it through a company, basically.
Like if you see, oh, do you want Roundup to Feeding America? Click no, go home, and go to the Feeding America website and go through the process of donating yourself.
Plus, if you're going to if giving charity is like a tax write-off, you might as well get those benefits. Like it's like, why give
Don't give it to a multi-billion dollar company.
Like, why should they get like the tax write-off that they don't even fucking need when you can get like a tax write-off like when you don't even make that much money?
Yeah, even if you want to be, for lack of a better term, selfish and capitalist about it, you're just donating for the tax write-off. Get the tax write-off. Don't give it a Walmart or a Stop and Shop. Get yourself.
And if we're talking about mutual aid as like a way to just simply help people, like
Right.
one of the things I've been thinking about, like since we started recording this, I was thinking about soup kitchens.
Soup kitchens absolutely can be classified as mutual aid.
But there's another thing that I was thinking about, like if we're talking about just helping people,
Yeah.
I have a story for you.
Ooh, a story. Good
yeah.
thing I'm already sitting down.
Like this comes down to just being a decent person. But James, you already know the story because I told you about it because I was so pissed afterwards. Right. But basically, I was busking on the subway on the 8 train, and I was about to move to the next car when this homeless guy comes up to me and whispers, "Hey, can you call an ambulance for my friend? She's having like she has an emergency. She needs like an ambulance." And I turned to the friend and say, "Excuse me, are you okay?" She says, "No, I need an ambulance." I said, "You need an ambulance?" She says, "Yes, I need help. I'm having an emergency." So the train had just pulled into 34th Street, 34th Street Penn Station. Is on the A line, and the doors were open, and I leaned out the door and I yelled to the conductor, "Hey, we got a sick passenger! Hey, yo, we got a sick passenger! Call an ambulance!" And I called out. And what pissed me off, like what I noticed, like other passengers were starting to get like very agitated. And like this woman, unfortunately,
I'm already getting angry.
I'm sorry?
I'm already getting angry.
I told you the story before, but this woman was like, she was mentally ill. She was a recovering addict, and she had like these different issues. And all the other passengers were yelling at her to get off the train if she really had that emergency. And unfortunately, she was not in the best mental health, so she was yelling back at them. And I was saying, well, look, and I was telling you, listen, don't worry. We're getting you an ambulance. We're getting you help. The conductor's coming. And the conductor came and like saw like, oh, this person needs help. And like the other passengers are yelling at her. And I'm like, guys, she needs help. And then and I'm telling the person who needed help, I said, listen, the MTA guys are here. Do you want my help getting your bags off the train? I says, oh, they're here? Okay, I can get off myself. And I said, okay, do you need your help with your bags? And she said, yes. So I took her bags off the train. She got off. But like, there were like 3 or 4 passengers in that car who were like so pissed off at her and at me, apparently. Like there was this one guy, like as like she was like yelling back at the people yelling at her. who said like when I tried to like calm things down, basically, he said he came to me and said, "Hey, you're making things worse," and I'm like, "I'm just trying to help." And like he was very like condescending about that, like, "Oh, you're making things worse." And like, later, like once the doors had closed and the woman was on the platform, like waiting for the ambulance,
Okay.
this guy said like, "Oh, she's never gonna change. She's from Jersey. She's a fucking drug addict. They're never gonna change." I'm like, that doesn't matter. She asked for help. If someone asks for help, you help. There shouldn't even be
And
a thought.
and that's
Like,
and
oh,
that's
but
the
like
thing.
she's a drug addict. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what she's going through. She asked for help, you help. No questions asked. Someone
Right.
asks you for an ambulance, you call a fucking ambulance.
And I have experience with drug addicts being around me. Like, well, regular, not regular. The general addict. It is not a choice. It is a sickness. That's the
I
thing
said like,
most
oh,
people
she's
don't
a
get.
fucking drug addict. And I said, like,
She's
addiction
sick
is not like addiction is a sickness. She needs help. Well, they're not gonna get it. And like she's never gonna change. Like, that doesn't mean you don't
because
get help.
she's sick.
And like these people were trying to like shame me for holding up the car like that. And I'm like, I told them I'm not going to be ashamed for helping someone who is in need. Like, you're not gonna make me feel ashamed for that. Like in New York, they tell you if you see something, say something.
And
So like if
they
someone
really mean
asks for,
terrorism, but
no, that's the New York thing. You see something, you say like by the way, we're not talking about like snitching or anything like that. We're talking about
no.
someone needs, if like there is a dangerous situation, somebody needs help. Someone asks you, "Excuse me, I'm hurting, or there's something wrong with me. Can you call an ambulance?" Once someone says, "I need an ambulance," you stop everything and you get them an ambulance.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people like want in New York City wonder like why like the subways are always delayed. Like 90 times, like 9 times out of 10, it's usually because somebody needed an ambulance and they had to stop the
That's
train.
something they don't report on.
No, because like they don't like, it's either one of two things. One is that there is someone in need of an emergency, whether it be a hospital or someone being violent or something, or someone like going onto the subway tracks or whatever, or it's subway equipment breaking down somehow.
Right.
So like 5 times out of 10, it's usually someone who had an emergency. Like a couple of days before this happened, I was on a one train that was stuck at 125th in like 0-degree weather. And like 125th is like one of the only above ground stations in Manhattan, in Harlem.
My God, it's above ground.
Yeah, so this train was stuck above ground. Why? Because some guy got like stabbed at 137th. And so the train was stuck for like 30 minutes. And the conductor basically said, like, okay, I'm just going to close the doors for like 10 minutes at a time. And then I'll open the doors after 10 minutes because like we're not going anywhere. We can't go anywhere.
And they can't keep the doors closed because of the
No.
programming?
They kept the doors closed because it was so fucking cold. But every like 10 minutes, the conductor had to open the doors because you'll have like you'll have like all these like different passengers who'll say like, oh, fuck this. I'm just going to get off.
Right.
And I became one of them because like my brother was meeting me that day.
Yeah.
But like the next few days, like someone asked me, like, call an ambulance. Like it didn't even occur to me to think anything else. And it pissed me off that there were these people who would doubt that if someone asks for an ambulance, you don't call in. Like that. What kind of person? Like, yes, there are a lot of jaded New Yorkers, but one of the better stereotypes about New Yorkers is that if you ask them for help, they will give you usually the stereotype is like, oh, if you're lost, ask a native for directions. And the stereotype is they will tell you where to go, but if you don't follow their advice, they're going to flip you off.
Yeah. Well, maybe. I didn't encounter this, but I could believe it.
No, but here's the thing though, like it just like, that's one of the things that you can do, like for like mutual aid, if it's just helping people. then it's just someone asks for help, you help them. Like I'm not perfect when it comes to like helping the homeless, because as a busker, I run into these guys all the time. And I literally get asked like 30 times a day for $1 or something. Now, when I
Right.
can, I do. Like if I'm in a bad mood or something, if I'm irritable, chances are I'm not going to do it. But I do my best. I
You
try.
do have to be in a certain mindset. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
blame you for that.
but that's the thing though. It's just like for me, it's just like I have to remember that they're worse off than me. And I also have to remember that I could very well be in that position if everything goes to shit for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like people have this like thing against like homeless people, like they think that they're not human. They're human.
Yep.
But the thing is just like they think that like people think, oh, they're human, that means they're going to be a good person. No, humans are just advanced animals, basically. Like you're going to
Oh
get
my
good.
God, absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
you're going like you never know if the person you run into is going to be a decent person or if they're going to fucking beat you up for no reason. You don't know.
Yeah,
That's
I'm going to say this before moving on. I'm going back to your point of we're just advanced animals. Um,
that's because I'm
people
an
say
atheist, so it's what I believe.
people say no, we are advanced animals, whether you're religious or not. Um,
No, because religious people believe that we're not animals.
no, I mean scientifically, we are.
Yeah.
We are. And people say, "Oh, we move past the natural world. We move past
No.
our biology." Bullshit. We go into fight or flight over a test, a job interview, and a funeral at the same time. We have not evolved past the natural world.
Look, when it comes
Absolutely not.
down to like this is a completely different subject, but I'll say this for like myself, like we
Please
all
make it
have
quick.
yeah, like we all have a logic brain and an emotional brain. We all have a brain and a heart, basically. And
Right.
the brain and the heart are never like in unison, really. Like the brain will say one thing and the heart will say another, and a lot of times you can't pick.
Right.
And I think that's like the biggest proof that we're animals, is just like that, is that a lot of times we have no choice but to follow what our heart says and not what our minds say. Like for me, I find like a lot of times like my emotions are so strong that I can't do anything about it, even though I am thinking like this is not rational. Like I'm thinking this is not this is like this is just me being emotional. Like I'll give you a specific example before we switch topics.
Okay.
I consider myself polyamorous, and with the whole thing, like the reason I consider myself polyamorous is because I always saw like all these stories about like spouses and partners cheating, and my weird ass brain is always asking like, why didn't they just ask permission? Why didn't they just sit down with their partners and say, listen, I love you, I chose you, but I don't want to just be with, I don't think that my love can just be with you. I want to be open. Like I honestly think that if people were more honest and open and communicated with their partners about like that kind of stuff, like basically just talk it over, ask permission, and just say, listen, like I would like permission to screw this one person, but just because I screw them doesn't mean I don't love you. I do love you. It's just that I don't think that like I can tame my desire,
Right.
and I think we'd be a
So
lot better off. And I think that right there, like, is like it just boggles me that like so like most people don't think that.
right. So
We went
going
way off
off of
topic.
that
I'm sorry.
going off of that tangent of philosophy and polyamory that I did not expect. I
That
want
thus
to
concludes thus concludes our ADHD runaway train.
That's the best way to describe it. You have no idea.
I know, right?
Yeah.
You know what it is? The ADHD like runaway train. It's like
You're going on another one. I need to move on.
I'll just say like I'll make it quick then. ADHD runaway train is you're thinking about baseball. Baseball is played on a diamond. Diamonds are given in engagements. Engagements lead to weddings.
Yes.
Weddings, like in 1967, interracial marriage was made legal.
Yes, absolutely.
Civil
before
rights
we go
was
on
fought for
another
100
one-
years. Abe Lincoln
Before
made the
we go on another one, you're still going.
I know, just making the point.
Right.
I'm sorry.
So going back to mutual aid and charity, we can have this whole debate about it all day long. What's
Yeah.
better? What's the purpose of each one? I want to emphasize that the debate about, which is better is useless because neither is a permanent solution.
Mutual aid is basically just like a way to deal with inequity and just like deal with problems in the community.
Right.
I mean, if we want to actually talk about like solving hunger, like I'm on EBT, like I have an EBT card. I get like food stamps.
Right.
Why doesn't everybody have that? That's what I think. Like, why don't we should seriously just like give every American an EBT card where they get food stamps, cash assistance, Medicaid, and whatever else you can do with an EBT card. That way, that's like food becomes guaranteed. You don't have to worry about going hungry. You don't have to worry about healthcare. You don't have to worry about the small expenses that come out of nowhere.
Those emergencies that you can't pay for. So circling back to mutual aid and charity, they will never be the permanent solution that we as leftists are looking for.
Me as a leftist, I'm looking for a society. Here's the thing though. Me as a leftist, I'm looking at like we need to solve the issues of people not having what they need. To me, like the most effective way to do that is to just like have a universal system that literally gives everybody what they want. I mean, I see it all the time. I see people literally Penn Station currently filled with homeless people. Right across the street on 7th Avenue, there is Hotel Pennsylvania, where, by the way, was the last place that James and I went to in public before the pandemic.
February 2020. That's right.
They closed that hotel because they're planning on tearing it down and building something new. Think about that. That place has like 1,700 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Like the city could have bought that building, renovated it, brought it up to code, and then just started giving away rooms. Just giving away like apartments to people who need, like literally the people who are sleeping in the Penn Station across the street. You go over to them and say, listen, we just turned Hotel Pennsylvania into a place where you can have a room forever, so you don't have to worry about being homeless. Like if you want, we'll give you a key, you sign the papers, it's yours. You don't have to be in the subway anymore.
But
like that would be
the profit motive. Ain't that lovely?
Yeah, but that's the thing though. Like the profit motive, just like it fucks with that. It just because like we all think, private property, why? For some reason in America, we think that property is more important than people.
Yeah.
You ever notice that with BLM? Like every time there's like a riot, all the conservatives are like, oh my God, they tore down a Target. They tore down Walmart.
Which, by the way, they did the same thing to King. That's the thing that they're never going to realize. They
pulled the same
shit with Martin Luther King.
Like I have on my phone a political cartoon from the 60s where MLK is talking to a newspaper reporter.
I know the one.
And it's like Martin Luther King says, I'm planning another nonviolent protest tomorrow. And the reporter has like this, like, oh my God, like this like scared expression on his face, because surrounding them is all this like carnage and violence, basically.
Right.
Like they were literally accusing Martin Luther King of being violent.
Yeah.
But like when BLM has a protest and some guy breaks into Walmart or whatever, like all the conservatives like, oh my God, they tore down Walmart. Like that's that poor store owner. But they never think, oh, poor Eric Garner who got like
Who's
choked out to
dead?
death. Yeah. Poor George Floyd.
Who's
Literally
dead?
choked out to death. Poor Breonna Taylor, shot to dead while she was in her fucking bed.
Dead, fucking dead.
Philando Castile for
Dead.
following the law and telling an officer, I have a legal firearm on me, and who was then immediately executed. Nobody, like no conservative ever talks for them. They all think that they're fucking criminals.
Right.
Fucking disgusting. I'm sorry, I'm ranting a lot in this episode.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're more on topic than you usually are. Now going back on topic, we talked about mutual aid and charity not being the solutions that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And I also want to emphasize they are needed as pieces to a very complex puzzle. And
well, here's the thing about like mutual aid and charity as a solution. You know who thinks that charity is a solution?
Who's that?
Libertarians. And not libertarian socialists. Like I'm talking about like anarcho-capitalists.
The don't tread on me crowd, right?
Yeah. Now, James and I have like a unique knowledge of libertarianism because we both started out as libertarians in that aspect. I mean, I voted for fucking Gary Johnson in 2016. And literally, like what changed it for me was the fact that like, oh, like I'm reading all this like literature and all these websites about how like welfare should be shut down because it's like a drain and they just like it and it's like, but my mother also was on EBT. She also had Medicaid. She had a medical, she was literally on disability because she couldn't work. And here's the thing, she wasn't the worst case.
Yeah.
And I looked at her and I'm like, wait, like a libertarian society would get rid of the welfare. My mother needs welfare to survive. And she's one of the lucky ones. There are people out there who literally don't have any legs, who literally are blind or deaf or whatever. They have like worse disabilities than what my mother had. And a libertarian society would force them to rely on charity. But if they're relying on charity, what if they're atheist? What if they're gay? What if they're trans? What if
they don't fit the criteria that the charity is looking for? What if you don't check all the boxes?
As we said, most charities are religious. And if you don't fit the box for a religion, chances are you're not going to be helped by a charity. Now, I also have my own personal experience on this because for many years, I was helped by the Orthodox Jewish community. And I recently had a fight with an uncle who basically said, like you have all these like radical views against the Orthodox community, but they helped you out. Why are you so ungrateful? But what he doesn't know was that I faced abuse at the hands of the Orthodox community. He doesn't know that like that help that I was given was strictly conditional on me fitting into the fucking box of that community. So charity does not set you free. It chains you.
Right.
Mutual. If you're like, if we're talking about a society that like cuts everything down, like we're much better off with mutual aid than we are with charity, honestly. But a better system would just simply to have just like a universal system in which everybody has like a debit card where they could basically have the things that they need. Like I would call that universal EBT.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a huge equalizer, a huge boon for the people, and it would eliminate a lot of the need for charity. Imagine if like all these people who are like going hungry in America because they don't have the money to buy food. They have to rely on donations or they have to go to soup kitchens. I mean, EBT is not perfect. They're only now starting to come up with the argument that EBT should go for hot meals like at restaurants. And I think it should, because a lot of people, they don't have kitchens. So if they're going to be buying food, a lot of times it has to be eaten readily, you know?
It has to be pre-prepared.
Yeah. But having that universal EBT would they say that I remember growing up when I was an Orthodox Jew, one of the things that was taught about charity was the Maimonides 8 levels of charity. And you have all these different, like 7 different levels of how to be charitable. But apparently according to Maimonides, the highest level of charity was to eliminate the need for it in the first place. Now, Maimonides gave the example of giving him a skill, or giving him a job, or giving him like a home or something. I think that like in the very same way, mutual aid and charity is similar in that aspect, in that the best way to help people is to eliminate the need for them in the first place.
The need for the help.
Yes.
And that goes into how charity and mutual aid, we chose a side on mutual aid, but if you like charity more, neither of them are going to be a real solution, which is why I believe, and hopefully Shane believes, that these are 2 small pieces in a very complicated puzzle. I think we're going to talk about this for the next 10 minutes.
Yes, we're talking about other ways to help people. Is that correct?
Right. You could try unions. You could try
unions is a big one, by the way.
Yes.
Like we are probably going to spend like 5 minutes or so talking about that.
Oh yeah. For those who don't know, because this is a big country, not a lot of people are going to know. A union is what?
I'm fairly sure that most Americans know what a union is.
Just to cover my bases.
Okay.
Jackass. A union is a group of ideally workers that negotiate between themselves and the upper brass of a company.
Usually that means,
go ahead.
Usually that's in the context of a company or in a franchise. Like, for example, recently we've been hearing a lot about like these different franchises that have been voting to unionize. Most famously, there was a Starbucks in Buffalo that successfully unionized.
Yes.
And the basic idea of unionization is the basic idea of socialism, which is that only through the collective power of the people can people have power against someone with a lot of power. And with unions historically, and even today, and it always, unions give more power to an individual worker than not.
Right.
Because what do you have without unions? You have like companies that become trillion-dollar companies who rake in millions and trillions of dollars of profit, while a worker is making like $15 an hour, scraping by with a meager existence. However, you have all those workers come together and say, we're not going to take this anymore. We're going to organize. We are forming a union. We demand better pay and better working conditions. We create the wealth of this company, so we demand our fair due. Now, most of the time that creates a conflict because management and the owners never want to concede. They
Right.
always want to make more money and fuck the workers. That is the way it goes, basically. But what ends up happening is that a union, they negotiate with management and with the owners. But if they don't get anywhere, the unions then they then eventually have to take the vote to go on strike. Now, this means, since you're saying covering your bases,
Right.
this is like unionization 101.
Yes.
Or not even
The
101,
last-
100.
For the last 5 minutes of the show.
Pretty much. But basically, like, if no negotiation can be made, the union will vote and decide to walk off the job and protest until they get their demands met.
And that's where we get the strikes that we've been seeing throughout the past 2 years with Nabisco, John Deere, Kellogg's, and I think all of them were successful, right? Except for John Deere.
I don't know, but most of them were. But here's another thing that's also very important. Unions are not just for jobs.
Yes.
Like the very idea of a union is basically social power, collective power. So it doesn't have to be at a job. Although if you hold like a regular job where you have a place of work, like always fight to unionize. That is the best thing you can do for yourself and for your fellow workers. But there are other ways to unionize that have nothing to do with work. For example, if you live in an apartment building and you rent from a landlord, you and all your neighbors can get together and form a tenants union or a tenants association. And you can negotiate with the landlord for better rent, for fairer rent, more response from the landlord when it comes
getting
to
the building up to code.
Exactly. That was
repairing things,
providing
on time.
heat, providing utilities, like forcing the landlord to actually do his fucking job, basically, because you get a lot of slumlords.
Yeah.
You also have, and it can go to a lot of other things. You have like credit unions, you have co-ops, basically.
And that's what I'm talking about when I say the pieces to the larger puzzle. Now, before we wrap up, because we are about to wrap up.
Yeah.
When it comes to community organization, because that's what mutual aid, the side we're picking, is all about. Look up direct action. Look up mutual aid, specifically mutual aid organizations, and look up the big unions out there and try to find ways just to make your community better.
Like literally the best thing you can do is to inform yourself about this. And James and I are not theory bros. We are not telling you to read theory. No. Like fuck no. Do like we're like if you want, you go ahead and read 950 pages of fucking Das Kapital. But that's not necessarily going to be as effective as just simply Googling and researching the unions in your area and how they are progress. Like here, like James and I get most of our information on current strikes and union issues from TikTok and Twitter. And the first one that I really was involved with was the Nabisco strike. And
I still don't buy Nabisco.
Well, I mean, the strike is over. So, like, they reached an agreement.
Here's the thing. Most of the Nabisco products I see, they're made in Mexico. So there was a specific instruction from Nabisco workers. I'm not trying to be bigoted in any way, but the Nabisco workers that were on strike, they said okay, when the strike is over, sure, buy Nabisco products, but make sure they're made in America so they're supporting us, the people
But what
that
I
were striking.
did, but what I did for the Nabisco strike is that I just like one of my favorite cookies is Oreos, and I basically like just stopped buying Oreos for the duration of the strike.
Right.
Then the next one was Kellogg's. Now Kellogg's was a lot more complicated because with Kellogg's, at first, like I didn't buy cornflakes. I mean, I don't usually eat cornflakes as well. I'm a General Mills person. I eat Cheerios and Reese's Puffs. Um, but I didn't realize until after, like one of the things that I eat is one of my favorite snacks is Cheez-Its.
Yeah.
And I didn't find out until like after going through like half a box of Cheez-Its one day, I found out that Cheez-Its are owned by Kellogg's. I'm like, oh fuck. But here's the thing though, this was also like while the strike was happening. But then what happened was that the union did not ratify the proposed contract from Kellogg's. And in response, Kellogg said, okay, we're going to fire every union worker who's on strike and just hire new ones.
And then
Once
a few
that
weeks
happened,
later, they won.
no, because like that, you pissed, like Kellogg's pissed everybody off with that one. But one of the things, like once I heard that that's what happened, I didn't even buy Cheez-Its. Like I just like, okay, nope. Until I hear that they ratified with the original workers, I am not buying Kellogg's anymore. That's like literally when we talk about like getting involved in a community, that is like, this is like
The bare
simply
minimum.
abstaining. Like it's simply not crossing a picket line.
Right.
It doesn't require action. The only thing it requires is mental knowledge. It just requires you to be informed about what's going on. And basically choosing to not buy a product from a company with the union actively on strike. And like that is like the most basic thing you can do is just simply support the unions through solidarity actions, passive solidarity actions, such as not buying from the company that is not treating unions right.
And if you are someone who has done what Shane was saying, just abstaining and just not crossing a picket line, the one thing I want to wrap up this episode on, if you want to move further, just do one simple thing. Talk to people in your neighborhood. And with that, we are going to close the third episode of the Rejects of Capitalism podcast. My name is James Rooney.
And I'm Shane Turner. Thank you so much, everybody.
Have a good night.
See you.